Good morning, everybody. Let's go. All right. It's 5:45 in the morning on, let's see, let me tug this down a little bit here. There we go, look more professional. It is 5:45 in the morning on October 13th, 2022, to the best of my knowledge. Let's go ahead and kick this thing off. This is the Ask Me Anything. Questions were harvested from the Private Track Facebook group as well as the BTWB Squads feature. Great questions as always, some fun stuff happening. Good morning, right back at you, sir. And we'll go ahead and dive right in. There's some fun stuff to cover. Okay, let's see. All right. And of course, this episode of the Ask Me Anything is sponsored by Strong Black Coffee. Fantastic. Here we go. The first most upvoted question is from Eric C. And he asks, who or what had the greatest impact on your knowledge of physical fitness? Most upvoted question. Easy question, quite frankly. Just a hanging curveball right over the plate, if you will. Easy day. Unquestionably, Greg Glassman in CrossFit. I know that's an easy answer, but unquestionably, Greg Glassman and his work. There's not even a close second, to be honest with you. What is so unique about Greg and all the stuff that I learned from him? He's a unique individual. And he not only was profoundly knowledgeable about what actually drove the needle forward on the human body, but he did have quite an ability, love him or hate him, to remove all the nonsense, to remove all the fluff. And if it irritated you, it irritated you. It was a focus on what works and the exclusion of everything else as just unnecessary white noise, academic nonsense, exercise science babble that didn't really make athletes better, unnecessary peer-reviewed paper on a topic that was just fluff. And he would call all that stuff out, and you just get back into the gym and you'd be squatting and deadlifting and sprinting and doing what actually worked. And so unquestionably him. And I will say, I've touched on this before, but especially his old work in the CrossFit Journal. If you're a CrossFit nerd, just a strength and conditioning nerd, you want to bump up your knowledge, don't get me wrong, there's some great stuff in the newer journal, but the gold is in the older CrossFit Journal. Some of those articles that Greg wrote are national treasures as far as I'm concerned. And back in the day, as much as I hate that phrase, but it is applicable in this case, the journal, which just didn't live how it lived online there. You would, if you signed up for the journal and you paid for it and it was worth it, I guess another topic to go down is people these days sometimes don't understand, like, things of value have value, and it's okay to swipe your Visa card. And the CrossFit Journal was just a knowledge treasure trove, and I gladly paid for it every month. And I would just get it emailed to me. I would print it out, staple it, and it would sit on my desk, and I would read it over the course of the month. By the time the next one would get emailed to me, and I would highlight things and circle things and all that, and there was a tremendous amount of fantastic mission critical, mission essential learning that took place there, and it was without compare. The other thing that I would say was mission critical and profoundly developmental in just me learning about all this stuff, because I do not have an academic background in this. I was a poor college student, poor both financially and poor in my attention to detail in class, that for some peculiar reason decided to major in sociology and barely graduated college with that degree. So the academic credentials are not there. So everything that I learned post-academia, if you will. Through self-study, and then obviously my occupation with CrossFit for a long time. But during my time with CrossFit, where I learned a lot as well, not only during the studying of the or reading of the CrossFit journals on my own time was during my time as a Flowmaster on seminar staff, and it was during an interesting time in CrossFit, in the world, and all of this. So, I did a couple hundred of those gigs every weekend for 4 years in a row. I was in a different city or different country presenting CrossFit to a live audience, watching people move, correcting their movement, answering questions, etc., etc. And this might sound weird in 2022, but I'm not lying to you. This is how it was quite a while ago, and I don't know why. There would be plenty of people that showed up to a level 1 seminar, paid to be there with their money, and weren't CrossFit haters, but darn near, as peculiar as that is, it was not uncommon to have like a borderline hostile audience when you were lecturing every now and then. Not regularly, but regularly enough that it was a known thing, that people were going to just be sharpshooting you left and right and just not believing a darn thing that you said, and there was constant pushback. And CrossFit was, in some degree back then, far more in its infancy and adoption phase than it is now. Now people just, that it works. It's unquestionable. I mean, I don't know, what more do you need? But back then that wasn't the case, and especially because so many things that we were presenting were contrarian to classic exercise science, classic strength and conditioning principles that people had done business with in the gym for years and years. And if somebody was sitting in the gym with some sort of credential from who knows what, ACSM, NSCA, blah, 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 whoever it was, or they had an exercise science degree from some prestigious university, there was a really good chance that they were sitting there with a nice piece of paper hanging on their wall at home that had like fancy lettering with their name on it, had a gold stamp, that they'd earned something. And then what we were presenting was in sharp contrast to what they learned in that other environment, right? And so there was back and forth all the time. So getting back to the question, I did a tremendous amount of presenting and lecturing as a Flowmaster in charge of the group. And so, it was kind of my job to make sure everything went well. And so I spent all of my off time preparing to battle those individuals, really. And so I was not married at the time, had no kids, so read that as tons of free time and even more of a workaholic than I am right now. So if I was working most weekends, Saturday and Sunday, for level 1 seminars, Friday's probably a bit of a travel day. Maybe you can get home Sunday night, maybe you can't, maybe you travel on Monday. But basically Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 3 full days, middle of the week, I didn't have to work, 3 full days. And all I would do for those 3 full days is go to the local Starbucks, go somewhere with whatever were the popular academic, most highly referenced strength and conditioning books, novels, journals, peer-reviewed, whatever, and plant myself with a cup of coffee and just go over them for 6 hours a day. I had nothing else to do. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 6 hours a day. Every single solitary week, all year long, for 4 years in a row. And when I'd finish one, I'd move on to the next. And I just read everything. Metabolism, nutrition, anatomy and physiology, you name it. Because I wanted to be utterly and completely over-prepared for whatever that question was going to come from so-and-so with the fancy letters after their name, whatever it was. I wanted to have an intelligent response as to why we did what we did with the CrossFit methodology, why it worked, and why they should possibly consider that it is valid even though they learned something different. And so that was a unique experience just because I was at the point in time in my life maniacally dedicated to my career, didn't have a family or kids, that's how I spent my time. So I learned a ton there. But here's the interesting thing. And this might bother some people, but sometimes the truth is an uncomfortable subject. I'll never get back all those hours of my life reading those books. And they did serve a purpose and a function because I was very well prepared lecturing, really well prepared. but it's not an exaggeration to say that I don't remember a single solitary day that after 6 hours of reading whatever it was, this 4-pound textbook with wonderful charts and graphs about energy systems, whatever the heck it happened to be, that I closed the book with an aha moment about how something I'd been doing in my garage, aka CrossFit, didn't actually work, and now I needed to do something else because I can't believe that I didn't know this and I just learned it from this book. Wow. I did not have a single solitary moment like that. So all it did was prepare me to have the chats in case somebody asked an unusually, overly complicated, unnecessary question that was basically a distraction. So all of that reading, it just quite frankly reinforced what we do and why we do it, and how much gold is in those CrossFit Journal articles. I mean, it was just basically, Greg just had this distillation of the gems. He just gave you the gems, period, end of story, and left out the fluff. There's so much fluff in strength and conditioning in general. It's unbelievable. And we do what works, and that's why we do it. And like we say at Linchpin, we do what's effective. We don't care what's popular. And so a lot of that was my strength and conditioning upbringing, if you will. Yeah, so that was that. Those are interesting times. I mean, interesting times. I should do a video or an interview with some of those old school L1 trainers about some of the just times that we went to war, because you'd have everybody in the audience, from the casual garage gym individual to an orthopedic surgeon to somebody that you just could not get them to believe that squatting below parallel was actually safe. Just refused to believe it. It didn't matter what you said. I mean, just, those are interesting days. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, dive into those journal articles. And then the second most upvoted question is kind of plays off of that. It's from Roy L., who says, of the CrossFit Journal articles that you have authored, do you have a favorite? I must admit, Roy, I actually had to look this up this morning. I don't remember a lot of the articles that I wrote, so I haven't read them in a long time. So I did a little Google search and checked it out. And I would say just a decent one if people wanted to check it out and read something. The one that I would point them to, it's entitled Lessons Learned. So if you type into Google CrossFit Journal, Lessons Learned, Pat Sherwood or something like that, that one should pop up. It is from February 2012, which actually made me chuckle a little bit, since that was 10 years ago. I wrote an article, I had lessons learned 10 years ago, which at that time, I started CrossFit in 2005, so I had 7 years under my belt, certainly enough time to get some lessons learned on paper. And now, 10 years have gone by, it's 2022. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things I've done correctly and incorrectly, and that's the whole point of these videos and podcasts and all this stuff, to hopefully share that information with folks to get them on a better, more efficient path than I was. So that would be the one that I would point people to, and I got a kick out of it just reading it this morning, or glancing it over. It's some of the same stuff, right? Like mechanics, consistency, intensity, not rushing into intensity too much, variance, targeting weaknesses, making sure that you don't have a bias, how being just strong does not mean that you're fit, and if you're just strong, you're not actually doing what you're supposed to be. Your strength will just poof, vanish as soon as your heart rate elevates a little bit. And then actually running, how it is so neglected and how it is so mission critical, and who would have guessed? So here we are. All right. Next most, not quite the next most upvoted question, but it's one that I'm going to answer because I think it's a great question. And this is from Brandon B. And the upvoted questions that I'm going by, they're just fun questions, like somebody wants, since the games next year are in Birmingham or in 2024, I should say, for me to convince Bosman to have like a Talladega Nights kind of thing happen for everybody. So I'll see what I can do with that. All right, This one is from Brandon B, and he's basically asking about best practices for scaling or modifying the LEO, L-E-O, limited equipment option, the dumbbell workouts every day. And he's using last Saturday's workout as an example and wants to know how he should have scaled that. And it's a great question. I think it'll have value for a lot of people, so that's why we'll tackle it real quick here. So let's see. So basically, for the limited equipment option, with regards to scaling, when we program the limited equipment option, I make the general assumption that you only have one set of dumbbells. Because again, when dumbbells first made their appearance in the open years ago and everyone decided to grab a set, most gentlemen found a pair of 50-pound dumbbells because that's what was programmed, and most women a pair of 35-pound dumbbells. And so that is what is used for the limited equipment option, the dumbbell workout every day. If you have more than one set of dumbbells available to you, if you have both dumbbells heavier than that and dumbbells lighter than that, which would be awesome, that would be my goal if you did, then you're golden. Because just like somebody who has a barbell and multiple sets of plates and they can scale the load up or down as needed, you could do exactly that with the dumbbells. And so that would be fantastic. So if you've got that, do that. You're of course always authorized to do that. But let's talk about Saturday's workout, what it was, what was the barbell version, and then what was the dumbbell version, so we can contrast the two, and then you can kind of figure out what would be good scaling concepts to have in your head. So Saturday's workout for October 8th was a heavy day at a high heart rate. The loading on the barbell was no laughing matter. 185 pounds was the prescribed load for men, 135 for women. The workout was 15, 12, 9, 6, 3 of a front squat and a chest to bar pull-up. Yuck, dirty, disgusting. But it was very intentionally a heavy day at a high heart rate. That was its purpose. That was its bias. That was how it was programmed. And I also made a little note under there that, maybe your 1 rep max front squat is 185. So you're obviously not going to do a 15, 12, 9, 6, 3 with 185. So I said, use the prescribed loading, or feel free to use roughly 60%, that's 60, of your 1 rep max front squat. So that was a prescribed workout. No rack unless necessary. And what that means is, if you getting that barbell off the ground is an unsafe, unwise, unintelligent decision, then you should use a rack. If you can get it off the ground, but it's just annoying, then great, you can have the barbell on the ground. So that was the prescribed option. The wild card option had that workout at 135 pounds for men, 95 pounds for women. The scaled option at 95 pounds for men, 65 pounds for women. And then, of course, we had the limited equipment option. So that's that. The limited equipment option, again, pair of 50-pound dumbbells for men, pair of 35s for women. The chest to bar pull-ups stayed the same, okay? 15, 12, 9, 6, 3. The number of squats that you were going to do with that pair of dumbbells was double the pull-up reps each time. Okay, so again, pull-ups still stayed at 15, 12, 9, 6, 3. So that means that first set of dumbbell squats was 30 repetitions. Then you did 15 chest to bar pull-ups. Then 24 dumbbell squats, 12 chest to bar pull-ups, etc., etc. So that was that. So, okay, let's talk about how you would have scaled that workout. So first of all, you've got to watch the video, and I'm not saying that you didn't, but I make a video each day and it's attached to every day's training, and it discusses the why of the workout. Why is this workout programmed today? What was the thought process behind it? What is its intent? And understanding that will give you a great insight as to how you should scale the workout, if need be. So for example, after watching the video for this particular day, it was stated that today is most certainly a heavy day at a high heart rate. That heavy barbell is the bias. It's a camouflaged strength day, if you will. Camouflaged by having us all hyperventilating while we're doing it. very intentionally also saying that nothing about this day needs to be or was intended to be unbroken. That's for sure. And so that, I think we actually did a podcast on this before. I think I did one where, like, unbroken, people have this, can get this in their heads. And again, I'm not saying this is what Brandon had going on, but they see a workout and they just think these days that everything has to be unbroken. If I can't do it unbroken, I should scale it. It's like, no, absolutely not. As a matter of fact, the polar opposite is true. That very, very, very few workouts are intended to be unbroken. And the opposite is valid the overwhelming majority of the time. Most workouts will be broken up. And so looking at this, if intentionally like, ooh, first set of 30 dumbbell squats, man, that's some chest to bar pull-ups, then a set of 24 dumbbell squats with that pair of 50s, I can't do that unbroken. First thing is, who cares? Because you don't have to. That wasn't the goal, wasn't the intent. You know, we think we get back to the actual prescribed workout today of 185 in the bar for men, 135 for women. The overwhelming majority of people who did this are going to break up that initial set of 15 into 2 sets, if not 3 sets. You know, that initial set of 15 could be an 8 and a 7, or a 9 and a 6, or something like that. Or it might be a 6-5-4 with, you know, resting as needed before they picked the barbell up again. There wasn't going to be a ton of people that picked up that barbell and just blasted out 15 front squats in that first round at that weight. But that was the goal and the intent. It was biased towards the heavy side below parallel, breaking it up into smaller sets, taking some rest, going again, building that leg strength. Fantastic. That's what we wanted. So if that immediately changes how you look at the limited equipment option, you're like, oh, so it's okay if to get to that set of 30 dumbbell squats, I've got to do 3 sets of 10 with some short rest between it? Yes, absolutely good to go. You know, or do a 15-10-5 or whatever it is that gets you to that. Certainly feel no need to do it unbroken. That's for darn sure. Let's see, I had some notes and I'm already off track here. So yes, the dumbbells, you do that. Of course, assuming that you can move safely and well the entire time. But this day was very much not intended to be a Fran-like experience by a long shot. So that should influence how you decide to scale this thing. Now, if on the other side, you're like, okay, great, so it's okay if I break this thing up. Fantastic. Well, to get to that first set of 30 front squats, I'm probably going to have to break it up into 5 different sets. It's like, okay, now it sounds like that's a bit too heavy for you, because it would be the same thing if with that original barbell workout, somebody had to break it up into 5 sets to get to the 15. They were going to do 5 triples with like resting a minute between each triple. Sounds like we've got too much loading in the bar for this particular workout intent and stimulus. Let's go ahead and make a modification. So if that's what it was, you're going to break it up that much? Yeah, we need to either lower the dumbbell loading if you have those available, or lower that rep from 30 down to something else. So let's assume for a minute you're going to stick with the heavy dumbbells, the 50s for men, because today is biased towards the heavy. So it'd be great if we could stick with the heavier loading. Again, as long as it was something that you can safely move. It's okay if it's a struggle. It's okay if it's a challenge. It's okay if it's really darn heavy and for a while you hate your life, as long as you can safely do it and your form doesn't degrade. If they're heavy to the point that you're not moving well, that's a different discussion, and that's something that very obviously means you shouldn't be doing that loading. We got to go ahead and knock down the loading. But assuming that it's safe and just really darn hard, great. That's actually what it's supposed to be today. So now, if 30 was too much, here's a way that you could think about it, especially after watching the video, thinking that most people are probably going to break up that initial set, 1 to 2 times, meaning you're going to break it up into 2 to 3 chunks, if you will. Then maybe that's would just be a great way to think about this. Is like, hey, oh, hello from Albania. What's up, Albania? So maybe you just do this. You're like, look, I don't know if I can get to 30, but these dumbbells, they're heavy, they're hard, but I can do them. But I don't know if I can get to 30 in 3 sets. Great. then just allow yourself 3 sets, resting, let's say, 60 to 90 seconds between each grab of the dumbbells, and you just get as close to 30 as you can. And if you don't get to 30 reps, who cares? Because let's say you did a set of 9, rested a minute, picked up the dumbbells again, you're now a little bit more tired, right? So now you get a set of 8, dropped them, rested 60 seconds, picked them up, and now you could only manage a set of 7. So you did a 9, an 8, and a 7. Well, that gets you 24 reps, not 30 reps. And if you're like, well, that's close enough, it's like, yes, maybe because we're having an intelligent discussion, it sounds close enough. But crazy CrossFitters, that would bother them greatly, because 24 reps and 30 reps, I do some quick math in my head, 10% of 30 would be 3, that was 24. So that's basically, if you did 24 reps, that's 20% fewer reps than the prescribed loading. So you had a nice reduction there, right? And that might bother some people, but that's okay. You did 80% of the reps. Fitness will be achieved. And if you did a heavy 9, a heavy 8, and a heavy 7, again, you just gave yourself 3 sets, 3 challenging sets, and I get what I get, and then you move on to the chest to bar pull-ups, fitness will be achieved. And there's a great way just to scale it right there. But you have to understand this, right? And you have to give yourself the authorization and the grace to do it, because I know CrossFitters, and CrossFitters are crazy, and some of them will see that that first set was 30 reps, and I didn't do 30 reps, I only did 24, and now I did the workout wrong, or now the workout is less effective, or now the workout is fill in the blank with some other sort of adjective or whatever it happens to be. Don't fall into that trap. Don't fall into that trap. If that dumbbell loading is challenging enough for you that you safely grinded through 3 tough sets, and then you put the dumbbells down and you didn't quite get to 30, you're going to be just fine. You're going to be 100% just fine. Do the chest to bar pull-ups. You come back for the next set. Now, having done this workout on Saturday, I'm here to tell you, you're going to feel spiced up already, and you could play that same game with the next set of dumbbell squats, which was 24. Okay? I'm going to give myself 3 touches of the dumbbells. I'm going to give myself a minute rest between each. If I get to 24, great. If I don't, no worries, and that's okay. I see Patrick's got a question, kept his rest shorter than that. That's fine. Again, it's totally fine. It just depends on how many you got. Did you get to the end? Did you not get to the end? If you kept your rest at 15 seconds and the next time you picked up the dumbbells, you got 2 reps, that rest was too short. It's actually, quite frankly, just that simple. If you rested 15 seconds, you picked it up, you got a set of 7 or 8, that rest was probably good for you. So again, we can play with the rest period. We can play with the rep scheme. We can play with the dumbbell loading. All of those things are small potatoes. The intent of the workout and getting as close to the intent of the workout as we can, that's what's more important. That's what to focus on. You rested a little bit less, you rested a little bit more. Great, you're fine either way. When I take a step back and I looked at the dumbbell loading, that it was intentionally a heavy day at a high heart rate, that it was supposed to be challenging, that there was no need to do the sets unbroken, that it's totally good to go to put them down. All of those things come into play, which is why the knowledge of the workout and the knowledge of how to approach it and the overall intent is more important than any one particular option, if that makes sense. So I guess my point is, the prescribed workout of the day was, let's just stick with the men's loading, stick with one loading, 185 pounds on the bar for men. And then the wild card option was 135, and the scaled option was 95 pounds. Well, there's probably somebody that 165 was the right weight for that. So I could have given yet a 4th barbell option. Somebody else, maybe 155. Okay, so now a 5th barbell option would need to be given. Somebody else, 145 or 125 or 115 is their sweet spot. Like there's literally an you could provide an infinite number, like 28 different versions of the workout of the day, and there would be somebody that needed option 29. So it didn't just quite fit them. And that's fine. I mean, that's totally fine. But at some point, you can see how it doesn't make sense. And so the best thing that you can do is provide meaningful, deliberate, intelligent options that will cover a wide variety of cases and bases and people. But then the knowledge base, the understanding behind it, that's when it really comes into, if one of those things doesn't fit you perfectly, you can make a good decision as to how to modify this. Rep range, loading, movement choice, any of that good stuff, and you'll be good to go. So, yeah, hopefully that's helpful. Okay, let's see. This is potential rabbit hole. This is something I think people struggle with, which is, if you do one of those little modifications that I just said, it might not seem perfect. And that saying that perfect is the enemy of the good is so true. It's so true. Bosman has a good thing that he says about how the general intent of the workout is really what drives the needle, not the particular little nuances, right? And so, Fran, there's no particular magic in 21-15-9. I know, shocking heresy to some CrossFit stuff, and this is coming out of Adrian's mouth, right? There's no magic in that rep scheme. Now, it works really well for a huge number of reasons. How it can be chunked out, that 21 into 3 sets of 7, or 10-6-5 or whatever, and the same thing can be done with a 15, 3 sets of 5, or a 9 and a 6, or a 6-5-4, whatever it happens to be, and it does work out really well if you choose the correct loading to have a large majority of athletes be able to keep their intensity really high, and when they go back to the movement at a reduction in the rep scheme, they can keep their intensity high again. Like, it works really, really well. But it could be, instead of 21-15-9, 22-14-7, which is an ugly rep scheme, but it does the trick. It still does the trick. And so my point is, if you've got to play with the rep scheme a little bit and you chop it up a little bit or whatnot, you're okay. You're totally okay. Because it's not that exact, specific, precise number that did it, that you just changed just a little bit. You changed a little bit. You didn't change that set of 30 into just one set of 7. That's quite a big change. You didn't take that set of 30, go really light on the dumbbells and make the first set 75 reps. That's quite a large change. Like we said, we played with that first set of 30, and you wound up doing a 9, an 8, and a 7, and you get to 24. You're good to go. You're good to go. So that's kind of some of the general concepts that hopefully through these conversations get into people's minds and help them make good decisions during the workout. So yeah, so that's that. So the other thing, we'll just end with Linchpin challenge this month is coming up for October. It's going to be Friday, October 21st to Monday, October 24th, and it is Linchpin Test 2. No running in Test 2. You're welcome. Test 2 is 3 rounds for time, 5 ring muscle-ups, 10 squat cleans, and 20 box jumps. 135 in the bar for men, 95 for women. We're going to give a scaled option. We're going to give a dumbbell option. There's going to be a cool t-shirt, tank top, stickers as well that you can get. Very awesome. If you want to learn more about it, go to the CrossFit Linchpin YouTube channel, and under playlists, go to the playlist entitled Workout Videos, and you'll see a video entitled October 2022 Challenge, Linchpin Test 2. And it'll give you all the good information you need about how to sign up, how to get a cool t-shirt or tank top with your name on the back, how to get the stickers if you want. You can totally do it just for free and get your name on the leaderboard. So it's just a fun community event, and no video required. Again, just have fun and do the darn workout. So, and no running. And in case you're wondering, for Linchpin Test 2, general times, data pulled from beyond the whiteboard, 40th percentile is about 11 minutes and 30 seconds. 60th percentile is around the 10-minute mark. And then for those that crush it, 80th percentile, meaning you are faster than 80% of the people who did it, is around the 8-minute and 30-second mark. So that gives you a good rough time frame of how long that workout should take. 8 minutes and 30 seconds or a little bit less on the very, very fast side. And then, making its way down to maybe the 11 minutes, 30 seconds, 12-minute kind of time frame. So it's a nice little time domain that everybody should enjoy. And who doesn't love squat cleans? So it's going to be a blast. So that's it. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk later.